Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Triumph Over Tragedy. Can you hear the Christmas music in the background? I was thinking as I was going to introduce my next guest, walking through the airport here and how he has to navigate his life, extremely different than mine. And I was thinking about when I came in, how am I going to find my gate? And I'm looking at signs and I'm looking all over the place to figure it out. Well, my next guest, he's actually on the board of a baseball team. He navigates life in a very unique way. And did I mention he's blind? Please help me welcome Steve Guerra. Good morning, Steve.
Morning, Matt. How are you?
I'm really good. So, you're double fisting it this morning.
Well, it looks that way, but
yeah.
One is the
don't spoil it for us.
The visco thing is one, and the other thing, the Starbucks thing, is obviously what it is.
Sure. We'll go with that, right?
Yeah.
Did you put some whiskey in it or something to calm the nerves?
No, I know it's 5 o'clock someplace, but no, not yet.
I'm not sure if it is 5 o'clock someplace. It's awfully early.
Well, it comes to think of it, it's in Afghanistan, and Kabul, Afghanistan.
That's true. Good point. Yes. Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate it very much. You have a pretty interesting story, and I think you like baseball too, I understand.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, you play baseball.
I play a sport called beep baseball for the blind.
That I was gonna say. What the heck? I mean, I know that you can't see, so how do you play baseball?
What'd say?
I mean, how was your drive out here this morning? You didn't hit anything.
No, I have not ascended to the level of being that 1% group of having a whole lot of dispensable funds. But I haven't driven myself out here today. I actually rode in his hot rod.
Yeah, right. My son's hot rod. Right. Yeah. It was fun. We're going to be real today, like every other podcast.
Sure.
And I've known you for a while, and I know your story, and I appreciate your attitude about life and just the things that you've had to go through and endure. And I guess I've told you this personally. I'm amazed by you every time. You walk up to the car this morning. I'm sitting in the car. You walk up to it. You're literally an inch or two away from the door handle right away. It's remarkable.
Well, a lot of his perception. A lot of it is I grew up in a sighted world, so I can guesstimate. Now I'll tell you with the inception.
Tell me what that means, though. I'm going to stop you for a second. You've grown up in a sighted world.
Well, let's give some history to the viewers.
Yes.
So, was born, of course, 50 years ago.
Okay.
Was born with congenital cataracts. It ran in my mom's side of the family.
Okay.
And had congenital cataracts, so had them, of course, wanting to be removed so I can improve, so my eyesight could improve. And certain things took place between 69 and 74 that was meant to cause the cataracts to, if you will, turn into air bubbles, which in that era of surgeries, of eye surgeries, the cataracts would then be, if you will, scraped off the eye. And that was supposedly is to when the eye became ripe, if you will. And that's not to gross out anyone, but that's just, medical, not so much medical terminology, but medical lingo.
Sure.
So in 1974, when supposedly the eyes were ripe, my twin brother and I went in for eye surgery because he had the same thing in his eyes.
Okay.
And they operated on him first, and the medication that was applied 3 years prior did work in one of his eyes and didn't in the other. And the doctor tried to manually take the cataract out versus having the process of the medication work, and it failed. So he left that well enough alone. At some point, you draw your own conclusions. Then he came to me and again tried the same procedure. And I think to avoid the audience from understanding, knowing the gory details, I'll say that the doctor deviated from standard procedure. So essentially what he did was attempt to operate on both eyes at the same time, opened up one eye and then couldn't get success and went around to the other eye. And again, the medication did not work in my eyes, so the cataracts were not air bubbles. They were still there, and he was trying to manually remove them. And as a result of his deviating from standard procedure and how he was supposed to do things, and the potential possibility that the instruments were not sterile because they were just brought over from the other operating room where my brother was operated on, and a post-operative infection, I lost my eyesight. Now, according to what they say, and what data was available at the time that we found this all out, is that it appears that the post-operative infection was the culprit primarily for causing the complete blindness, because there was a deterioration of the retina and also a piece of the optic nerve, which are two central parts of processing what you see to your brain. Yeah. The retina being the biggest part. The retina is much like, if you will, and look, if there's a medical professional will come out and say, well, that's wrong, whatever. This is what I was told. Yeah. The retina is a lot like your fingerprints. Once you lose them, you're never going to get them back.
Okay.
So that happened in 1974. So
you're 5 years old.
Yeah, 5 years old, and of course, at that age.
So up to that point with the cataracts, could you see?
Could see blurrily.
Okay.
Could see okay, and I was told then by my parents prior to going into the surgery that I was going to have better eyesight. So as a 5-year-old, and me having a 10-year-old, I know this firsthand as to how a 5-year-old's mind thinks, because my earliest memories are not while I was seeing. My earliest memories are after I've already gone blind.
Sure.
So, and just seeing the world through a 5-year-old's eyes, I understand now what happened to me, because after coming home and after being told that I couldn't see, I went into shutdown mode. So, just to
when you explain shutdown mode,
I will. So, from the time that the surgery was over, and we started having the post-operative infections in our eyes, my brother's one eye and my 2 eyes, we were violently ill for 3 days in the hospital. From that point, I was let down as a 5-year-old. Felt I was let down by the people who I trusted the most, my parents.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my parents' fault, but they took the brunt of it. As you and I can probably understand, the times that maybe our children lash out at us, it's we bear the brunt.
Right.
So they bared the brunt of me not being able to see, and they were devastated. But they needed to be strong, and they needed to be supportive of the new lifestyle, the new normal. Then. So I went to shutdown mode, and I only spoke to my mom when I needed to. I psychologically shut everybody out. I closed down, and I was like that for about 6 months to a year. And so you're 5 years old. You associate being 5 years old with kindergarten.
For sure.
I didn't go to kindergarten. Believe it or not, in 1974, the principal of the school said, no, he can't come to kindergarten. He won't be able to learn the right way. Whatever the right way was. Their normal was that someone could learn because they could see.
Yeah.
Again, this is 1974. The world has changed dramatically since then.
Absolutely.
But what were you going to say?
Where were you living?
I was in New York. I was in a small town in comparison to, say, Rochester, Minnesota. Okay. I was in a small town called Freeport, New York.
Sure.
It's on the South Shore of Long Island.
Yeah.
About 15 minutes.
I'm familiar with it, actually. I've been there a few times.
15 minutes from where the World Trade Center was.
Yeah.
Great place to grow up at the time. I grew up in a Spanish neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood that was diverse with people from different Latin American countries: Dominican Republic, Argentina, Cuba, Mexico, Puerto Rico. so I grew up understanding and knowing Spanish, but not being able to speak it. My dad originally was from Cuba, and he felt that it was more important for my brother and I to understand and learn the English language before we learned Spanish. In retrospect, was that a great idea? Probably not. I have loved to learn Spanish from him, but he came to the United States 3 months before the Bay of Pigs.
Okay,
and he just looked like Ricky Ricardo, spitting image.
Wow.
But anyway, so he felt growing up that he in that age, in that time frame, and it still occurs today. Parents who have children who are challenged in different ways, some have that, if you will, smothering and or sheltering type of belief that they want to shelter their children, as any parent wants to shelter their children from any harm or any danger or any negativity or ugliness. But my dad felt that he wanted us to learn what we needed to learn initially. Spanish was not one of those things.
Yeah.
Sorry for going off tangent, but
no,
anyway.
I asked the question, and I think that's important for people to understand what environment you were in at the time.
I grew up with a twin brother who had some eyesight, so we played a lot together. We had friends who would come over, but we weren't invited to a lot of kids' houses because who wants to have the blind kid over? I mean, everyone looked at it as a liability. But as we grew older, as I got older and stuff like that, the parents who I met of friends saw that I was normal. So it was perfectly...
Wait.
Yeah.
You are not normal, Steve.
Yeah, well, that's certifiably,
I'm
yes.
sorry, but you are
that's
not
documented,
normal.
yeah. I know, I agree.
I'm not saying that. I know that you're not normal because I know you fairly well, and I'm not normal. So from one not normal person to another, you are not normal. But what's normal? And that's really what my point was.
Yeah,
so I appreciate that.
The parents of friends who got to know us knew that the only difference between me and their kids is that I couldn't see.
Yeah.
And my mom was it's interesting. My mom's parenting skills were very liberal, yet she was quite conservative.
Okay.
So she said, why not let them try roller skates? Why not let them try riding a bike?
Yeah.
If it was up to my dad, he wouldn't have had any of that. My mother used to joke.
So you rode a bike?
I've ridden a bike, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
But
I have a unicycle in the other room.
No, I won't. I'm not that crazy.
Okay. All right.
That's just at 50 years old you get to you don't cross things off your bucket list. You just say those are things I just don't want to do.
Right.
So my mom was that way, but my mom often said, and I want to preface also that when I was 15, my dad passed away.
Okay.
But my mom used to joke around and say, if your father was alive when you went to your prom, he probably would have been a chaperone. I'm like, but who has parent chaperones at proms?
Right.
Leave me alone. But that's just the way he was.
I wanted to be that guy. I mean, I probably even said something, but I wasn't. But
as a parent, we all
want to protect your kids.
Yeah, we all want to be there. Yeah,
yeah, you want to protect them.
See, to me, the greatest thing, my mom used to say, when you get older, in Italian, there's a word, angora. They said, I hope you have the same experiences that you're giving to me now. Whereas, I hope your kids do to you what you're doing to me.
Right.
But now as a parent, I love doing things because I have a 10-year-old and I have two stepdaughters who are 15 and 17, and at that age level, the last thing they want to do is be embarrassed by their parents.
Yes.
So to me, that's just an open door. Off
camera, you even said you kind of I would even call it apologized a little bit about bringing humor into this, because the podcast obviously triumph over tragedy, but that's the whole thing. It's the triumph part.
Yeah.
And the humor is part of the triumph, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that there's a fine line that a person can walk between what's actually using humor to hide things and to hide what they're how they're hurting and different things like that. But then I understand your humor, and I understand where it springs from. So I appreciate that. So please don't apologize for that humor.
No,
it's not like, the idea is we're not wallowing in the tragedy. That is exactly the idea of this, and it's to show that a blind guy can live a productive, happy, healthy, fun life.
Exactly. I use euphemisms that most people say, what? So I'm going to use one here. So I was watching TikTok last night, and the guy said...
Wait, back up. You were what?
Exactly. That's my point. So
you were listening to TikTok?
If you want to call it that, yeah, but I was watching it. And
right.
I use my euphemisms as you use yours, but so I was watching, the guy said, if you're going to follow me, just be aware that my videos are going to be really, really weird. So, to me, look, it's perfectly normal. If we're sitting, my daughter Kaylee and I were sitting at a nail salon in Rochester, getting our nails done the other day.
Yeah.
So by default, something happens, I have a comment. And it's pretty quick-witted. So the other day, I'm sitting there getting my hands done. Now, of course, the people in the nail salon, most of which speak barely any English or no English at all.
Yes.
So, which is fine. It's not a big deal. There's always a way to communicate. Mm-hmm. So a bell rings or a phone rings, what I think is a phone, to my left, and I go, phone's ringing, right? And we leave, and Kaylee said to me, she says, Daddy, that wasn't a phone ringing, but thank you so much for embarrassing me, because it was just the bell for the timer for people who have their hands under the warmer to dry. I'm like, well, hey, sound like a phone ringing,
Right.
Because, she said, everyone was looking at you, like, swell, let them look.
Right.
I'm not a bad guy to look at,
Right.
Go off on another tangent and tell you a story. When 1994, there was a Long Island Railroad strike, and I was going into the city. No, it was 1996. I'm sorry. So I'm going into the city and to do some work, and in lieu of the Long Island Railroad strike, it was felt that maybe I should learn the New York City subway system, which is fine.
Okay.
Not a big deal. Terrifying, if you ask me. And I'll go off on something else in a second. But so the mobility and orientation instructor, George Keckler, said to me, we're going to teach you how to use the subway. We're going to teach you to go from Jamaica, Queens, where Long Island Railroad has a major stop and a hub. And we're going to teach you how to take the subway from there up to 26th and Park Avenue South in New York City. Okay, no problem. So we get on the...
Was that your attitude, really?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Right?
That's great.
I want to step away and just say this to you. I am deathly afraid of heights.
Okay.
Now, that may seem odd.
I was going to ask you to help me do some roofing this weekend.
No. No. If it's a flat roof, yeah. If it's pitched,
Sure.
hell no. So I'm deathly... So Long Island Railroad, most Long Island Railroad stations, at least 80 to 90% of them are elevated. Mm-hmm. So taking from someone who was once getting onto a Long Island Railroad train, that the train was further away from the platform than I expected it, and I fell between the train and the platform.
Really?
Taken from that, yeah. But it wasn't bad. I got a little scraped up, no big deal. But no stitches. No stitches, no worries. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Anyway, so take into account that I'm deathly afraid of heights and stuff like that. Subways underground, there's still that part of the platform that can be misjudged and you can fall onto the tracks.
Yeah.
And there's been horror stories about people who fall on the tracks, who get pushed onto the tracks, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I didn't want that to happen to me. So we get onto the first train. We get onto the F train.
Okay.
Okay? From Jamaica. And the guy said to me, George, he says, listen, he goes, this may sound gross. He says, but it's a true fact. And take this for all the rest of your audience who watches this. If you ever go to New York City, if you don't want anyone to sit next to you on the subway, spit on a seat.
Are you serious?
Swear to God, he told me that. Yeah. So I said, all right. He says, do it. I said, so I did it, right? He goes, now no one's going to sit next to you. You don't have to worry about someone strange coming up and bothering you or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, it works. He says, oh, put your feet up in the seat, but they're going to tell you put the feet down. But as soon as the conductor walks past from taking your subway ticket or not a subway ticket, they don't take your tickets on the subway. They'll punch them in the turnstiles when you go through. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there's conductors will come through. They'll tell you to take your feet off the seat, blah, blah, blah. Long Island Railroad, they come through and they punch your tickets as opposed to the turnstile.
Okay.
And I talk very fast, so forgive me. But so I
listen fast too.
Yeah, I try. So I take the subway. I get the subway. So I thankfully at some point I had to spend the night in the city once, and the Long Island Railroad strike resolved within a day, which is great. So I'm like, fantastic. But I'll tell you that learning. I don't want to learn the subway system.
Okay.
I know it. I know what trains take you where and stuff like that. I don't want to use it. I don't feel comfortable myself with my orientation and mobility skills. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a 3-time guide dog user. Okay. I'm a 40+ year cane user. I just don't feel comfortable with the New York City subway.
Yeah.
Only because it is that dangerous. And no, you don't need sight to maneuver it. There are people who maneuver it all the time. More hands off, hats off to them. I don't want to be part of that. I'll jump in an Uber, a Lyft, a New York City taxi cab. It doesn't matter. I want to stay above ground.
Okay.
You know? That's just my theory.
Yeah.
Going back to where we were talking about before.
Yep.
So there's challenges that everyone deals with on a regular basis. And how they deal with those challenges and how I choose to deal with those challenges is, 1, it's a new experience, and 2, there's something funny that's going to come out of it.
True, right?
Always. I mean, trust me when I tell you, taking Long Island Railroad home from New York City for a year, working in the city, I always try to get on the car, the train was a train I would take from Penn Station, New York City Penn Station, which is underneath Madison Square Garden. I would take it on the Freeport Babylon line. So they would stop. The train I would opt for would stop at Jamaica, then Rockville Center, Baldwin, Freeport, and then so on all the way through to Babylon. Mm-hmm. And on that train, they had a bar car. So I found out, someone said to me, oh yeah, I just got this from the bar car. Bar car? Really? So I found out where the train was, and what was funny is, I'm on a platform waiting, and it's extremely warm. I mean, incredibly warm on those platforms underground for the Long Island Railroad going out to the Long Island with the Long Island Railroad.
Okay.
And I was standing on the platform, and I'm like, wiping off my brow, and I'm waiting, and I sensed something. And again, it's a perception. I sensed something that was in front of me, and I heard people saying they want this, and a guy's exchanging money. I'm like, hey, excuse me, what is this? He goes, oh, this is the ball cart. He says, but when the train gets here, we're going to bring it on the train. I was like, seriously? So I said, I can buy whatever I want. He goes, yeah, you can buy what. So I ended up, at the time I was drinking rum, so I ended up buying a couple rums and Coke, and I said, this makes the train ride that much smoother. But what the funny part that most people will identify who ride the Long Island Railroad back from New York City on on Fridays or whatever every day is sometimes you have a tendency to fall asleep and you might pass your stop. So not me, never me, because at the time I was using a guide dog. So every time we got to the station before me, Baldwin. Mm-hmm. When the train started going again, my dog would get up. I'm like, and I said, we must be coming to my stop. And sure enough, they said Freeport next stop. I'm like, my dog knew.
Wow. So the Freeport station, I've like stood right outside of it before, so I know exactly. It's fun to hear you talk about it because it's remarkably I've been right there.
It's hard, it's horrible because that platform is 30 feet in the air.
It is, absolutely.
And when it's windy, it's torture. The first time I got I was walking with a cane. They said, "Come on, we're going to go train at the Freeport train station." So I'm like, "All right." So I didn't know anything about it. I mean,
Right.
I was a teenager.
Sure.
So it was windy that day. We're walking, and I said to the trainer saw that I was nervous, and this is before. I want to wind back. The guy named George Keckler, the guy who told me to spit on the subway seat, was part of the people who were instrumental in putting the on the subway and also along on the railroad, and with a lot of train stations in Chicago and around metropolitan areas that have trains or subways or elevated lines or whatever. They have this tactile metal plate that is right before the edge, so a person with a cane can tell that they're nearing the edge. They didn't have that at the time when I was learning the train platform. So I said to my instructor, I go, how am I going? He says, listen, what you can do is, right in front of you is a billboard. So follow that billboard and put your back at the edge of that billboard, and you'll be in the middle of the platform. And if you keep on walking forward, you'll be straight. If you feel that you're veering off, just make your cane arc wide, and you'll be able to feel if you're near the edge of the platform. What were you going to ask?
I was going to ask, so the trainer, you talk about the trainer, are they also blind?
No.
Okay.
There are people who are totally blind or partially sighted who are orientation and mobility instructors.
Okay.
I've never had one, nor would I request to have one. Granted, they're in the same boat as I am.
Yeah.
And they use a cane, but I don't think it's a good equation for teaching those who are blind and visually impaired about orientation and mobility skills. They might be able to contribute, but I think primarily, and all my mobility and orientation instructors have always been sighted.
Yeah.
I had one when I moved to Rochester that is completely sighted, but when we're walking in an area, in order to simulate what I'm experiencing, she will put on a blindfold and walk with a cane side by side with me. But she can very easily lift that blindfold if something comes about.
Right. See, I'm thinking like these trainers, yeah, and that makes sense because, you know, I know my house fairly well and things like that, and I'll goof around or whatever and, and, you know, close my eyes and try to walk around. Or what I'll do is if it's dark, I won't turn a light on just to, you know, run to the bathroom or whatever. And it's like, I can't even imagine what that would be like to be permanently that way. So what I want you to do is tell us about what that's like in your mind, right? Like, so is it just something, so you like steak and it's just something you get used to eating steak, right? Or you like you like rum and it's just something you get used to and drinking rum. Or so is that what it's like? So you go into a new area, is that just freak you out, or you're just...
No, there's a lot of people who like to go drive and check out new areas and explore, and to me it's like a new exploration. Look, I'll be honest with you, I've been labeled a bull in a china shop. My mom said to me, we would go to on several different occasions, we went to a place on Long Island called the Miller Ridge Inn.
Okay.
It's a historical spot. It's from the 1700s. They have a restaurant that they serve Thanksgiving dinner and stuff like that. And they have shops. They have a candy shop. They have a bakery. They have an antique shop and a glassware shop. And my mom would always tell my brother, or tell me, stay out here. I'm going to go in this store and look around. You're not allowed to come in.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why? He said, because we know how you like to touch everything, and there's a lot of breakable stuff in here. But it's okay. I won't break anything. I promise. No, I'm not going to take that risk.
Right.
But that is how what my mom felt.
Yeah.
But to me, going someplace new, like coming into your house, I have a memory like a sieve. I keep everything in. So, given 5 minutes, I could probably find my way around your house and know like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
That's just the way I am.
So because that's the way your mind has developed.
My mind has developed to, if you will, leave a trail of, if you will, breadcrumbs.
Sure.
And this is interesting. It would be auditory and also tactile breadcrumbs that it will be cues.
Yeah.
So
okay, go ahead and explain. I have a couple questions, but
you
might answer them. Go ahead.
By default, when we were coming up to your back door, I was using my cane, which is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
However, the normal me would have had my cane in my pocket and would have just plowed right through. And that's just the way I am. I do that. We were talking last night. I was at another podcast guest. You had Joel Starks. He owns a club in Rochester called the Corona Club. Yeah, it's a private cigar and pipe smoking club, and we play cards there. So, when I went into the new place that is where we are now, I went in purposely when nobody was there, so I could go at my own pace and see where everything is. But again, because I don't want to break anything, I go a little slower. And one of the things I've always been accused of is you just move too fast, and which is all fine and good. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's bad. To me, I'm a plow ahead. And one of the things we were talking about last night is that we were talking about getting potentially snow here tonight. I said
stop swearing like that, man.
One of my favorite things to do, honestly, is to snow blow. You know, because
you're kidding.
Love it. Because imagine this. To me, and I've never mowed a lawn, but it's much like mowing a lawn. You know, so when I lived over...
It is not like mowing a lawn. I'm sorry.
Well, almost.
Mowing a lawn is way better.
Anyway, when I lived over on Limerick Lane, where you were instrumental...
I'm familiar with, yeah.
That driveway was 3 cars wide. So
it was a big driveway.
Yep. So when the snow came along, I would go out with the snowblower. It was like a 5 horsepower snowblower, 2-stage.
Okay.
And I would go from side to side, and I would clear that entire apron, and then also the front apron where the cars would be able to pull in from the street. To my dismay, at some point, and this is what everyone experiences, the damn city would come down and plow us in again. So between shoveling and also the snowblower, you know, when you have a certain amount of snow, when it's depending on how powdery or how wet it is, snowblowers are ineffective. So I would take the snowblower and I would go out there and I would spend a half an hour out there, and I would clean it all, because my theory was I want to make it possible for my wife at the time to get out. And if I could get her out to the street, everything else is downhill. Everything else is good. And I did whatever I possibly could, but I loved every minute of it. To me, I like clearing the paths. I like making sure that and I would do my sidewalks, and then I would go over and start the sidewalk for the neighbors on either side of me, so they had something to build off of. At some point, I wasn't crazy enough to go do someone else's house at some point, because I don't know their house like mine.
Yes, right.
You know? To me, when I first moved into that house on Limerick Lane here in Rochester, when the kids were at school, my wife was at work, I went outside and I walked around that entire house. I wanted to know every inch.
Yeah.
And I know where things are. I say, well, you must count steps. Hell no. Why bother?
Yeah.
There's no point to that. To me, there's no point. Other people might use that concept much along the lines as to people will put their money in order and fold it in different ways as a blind individual in their wallet or purse or whatever. Not me.
So you trust people with your money
No, I don't trust anybody. But
so if you don't fold it a certain way, or how do you tell?
I know what I have in my wallet, much like I know what I have in my closet. Now, this is going to seem kind of crazy to your audience.
So at some point, you have to trust somebody what you have.
Though. No.
But how do you
Modern technology has allowed me to not necessarily not trust anyone, but more rely on the resources that I have available to me to tell different things.
Okay, so if I got money out of my pocket right now and I handed it to you, how would you know what it was?
There's an app on my phone that tells me what the money is. It's called Money Reader.
Okay.
Right? Much like I'm wearing what others might consider a pink shirt and blue jeans.
Sure.
But I know that because I have a device that tells colors for me.
Sure.
It's not that I'm not look.
I think it's great that you can be independent like that. I mean, technology is amazing, and obviously it's remarkably changed your life. And I guess the thing too, like you talk about at the train station, they didn't have any way for you to tell where the edge was, and now they do. And I think that's terrific that we can learn how to help each other and help people that have different needs than what I might have.
When I went to get a guide dog for the first time, we were working in Flushing, New York, Flushing, Queens. Mm-hmm. We're working on there's a Long Island Railroad station there, but there's also subway. So there's a 7 line that's in Flushing, New York. And we went to train with the guide dogs. Come on, we're going to do subway training. Okay. So we get down the subway, and my trainer, his name is Bob, hysterical guy. I used to make him laugh all the time. Anyway, so we would go, and I said, Bob, I can't help but tell you that, I said, I'm terrified of platforms. He goes, why? I said, because I'm always worried about falling off. He goes, well, this is the great thing about guide dogs. Because they put themselves between danger and you. They will put their body between the edge and you so you never fall off. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I said, well, so for a moment, I had a sliver of hope.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what happens if I turn? And he says, well, your dog is supposed to push you back away from the edge so you don't fall off. I says, well, suppose, and there's a test that they give you and the dog to see how compatible you are when you're doing that type of training. Like you'll turn to the dog and you'll say, all right, left. And the dog will either move or don't move. He says, but he said the way the dog thinks is, hey, look, if you want to step off that platform, I'm not going with you. Go.
Sure.
They're not stupid, but that's them putting themselves between danger and you. And that's where they're guiding you away from danger. But again, I've always been terrified of train platforms, and I always will continue to. I mean, even now, like several years ago, I went skiing for the first time. Okay. And
wow.
Yeah, it was an experience.
Like snow skiing.
Yeah, snow skiing. We went up to a Coffee Mill.
Yeah.
And which is north of here. And so the guide the way they do skiing for the blind is the person will be behind you or on the side of you or in front of you, depending on what you're...
Dude, I wouldn't want to be behind you skiing. I'm going to run you over when you wipe out.
Well, they'll back a ways. They're back like 10, 15, 20 feet.
All right.
So the thing that was scary to me was not going down the hill, was getting off the damn chairlift.
That is scary, actually. That's
because
true.
You get on the chairlift, there's nothing below you.
Right.
Your skis are dangling.
Yes.
So the guy said to me, when I say 3, jump off. What? Jump off. What are you talking about? Jump off.
Right. Oh, wow.
I had no idea. And the chair is going back and forth and is moving up, and I'm like, suppose I fall off.
Right.
And then same thing. We went. Same thing. Wow. Like 4 or 5 years ago, we went to. Went to South Dakota, the Badlands and Mount Rushmore and all 9 yards. And we're at Mount Rushmore, and there's this is hysterical. We're there, and the kids did zip line, and then they had a lift that you would take up to go down. Go down these tracks with these sleds. Like if you push a lever forward, the sled went forward. If you pulled it back, it would stop. It would break it.
Sure.
But you had to take a lift. So,
okay, like a ski lift.
Yeah. So here I am, me, my daughter Kaylee, who, gosh, how old was he? Like 5 years old, something like that. And my now ex-wife Andrea, and I said to And I was worried that Kaylee was going to slip through the back of the chair and fall off. I was terrified for her as a parent. So, and Andrea saw it. She goes, "I never knew you that scared." I'm like, "No." So she says, "What about zip lining?" I said, "Well, I'll try it." So we go to the. I don't know where we were for zip lining. Maybe there, or it was there. Anyway.
Okay.
I don't mean to go off tangent. I'm sorry, but this is
this is what we're here to do: just chat and have a good conversation, right? I mean, it's good.
So we climb up this immense hill / mountain to get to the top, and my ex-wife has explained to me, well, what you do is the guy puts a harness on you, then you take a step down, and there's a little ledge, and you sit on it, and then you go off on a zip line.
Wow.
What? You mean I got to step off like that?
Yeah,
Never land?
Right. Trust the harness.
The guy says, "I promise you're gonna be okay. You got the harness on. You're okay."
Yeah.
So once I got to the other side, I was like, but I mean, one of the things that I experienced, even from when I was 17, as a high school student, as a senior, we're 18 years old, I should say. We went to Great Adventure, which is a Six Flags park in New Jersey.
Okay.
So my friends go, "Come on, let's go on lightning loops." What's lightning loops? Oh, it's a roller coaster. You go forward and you go backwards. What? So I said, all right. So I get in the roller coaster. We go forward and then we drop. I'm like,
right.
That's so bad. And all of a sudden we start going backwards. I go, the frick is going on?
Yeah.
It was, to me, no one told me what the machine was like. In retrospect, I probably would have never gone on it.
Okay.
But I mean, so I've never been big into roller coasters. And let's speed ahead now to 2010. Beat Baseball World Series, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, is here in Rochester, Minnesota. Okay. And my ex-wife Andrea has a brother who lives in Austin, Texas, who's also totally blind and also plays baseball. So the World Series is here during Olmsted County Fair.
Okay.
And he said, "Yeah, let's go down to Thursdays on First to get something to eat, and then we'll go to go to Olmsted County Fair." Great. So my ex-wife is big into roller coasters, big into different rides. Mm-hmm. So she keeps on asking people, "Come on, who wants to go on the what is it called? The Zipper."
This is a good old Zipper.
So I said, "Explain it to me." So she's telling me, and I said, "You know what? I'll go on." Right?
Yeah.
So whatever. So we eat. At the time, Thursdays on First has Michael's, and I got a steak sandwich. It was great. It was awesome. Tasted delicious. Get to the Olmsted County Fair, go on the Zipper, get on the Zipper. Halfway through, Andrew says to me, "Steve, you don't look so good." "What do you mean? You look a little green." "I don't feel so good either." Right?
Yeah.
So we, of course, I mean, we get off the ride, and I'm sweating profusely.
Ooh.
And she's like, "Are you going to be okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be all right." I said, let me just throw up in this bucket over here." And after that, it was just downhill. I mean, I have sworn off roller coasters ever since then. I will never go on one. I don't care how much I love you or how much I care about you.
The Zipper
never again on roller coasters.
Yes.
But that's just, and my daughter wants to go on them. Great.
Yeah.
Let's take a friend.
Right.
I'm not going with you. I'll pay. I'll pay through the nose. I'm not going on. Bumper cars? Yeah, no problem.
You live a full life, man. That is fun. That's good. And no one would really expect that from someone who's blind, right? I wouldn't.
Well, my theory is more so now as a parent is I want to experience as much as I can possibly with my daughter and do as much as I possibly can. So I'm not going to say it here, but I'm working on a trip for her in the beginning of December.
Yeah.
That she wants me to tell her where we're going to go. I know where we're going to potentially go.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say anything to her because I don't want to ruin the surprise for her. But
don't ruin the surprise.
No. And who knows if she'll even listen this far in.
Yeah. Probably not,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to experience all that. I want to, 2017, she was 7, 8 years old. She was just going to be 8 years old, and we're coming back from West Palm Beach, Florida, from the Beat Baseball World Series, and I stayed an extra day because I just needed to wind down after the whole week has gone on. And I said I want Kaylee to stay with me and have her fly back. So we flew back via Southwest, and we came through Milwaukee. And it was my first experience really going through an airport with her. And what's interesting is I had always asked for sighted assistance when I get to the ticket counter to check in, check the bags, all 9 yards.
Yep.
Now that she's 10, 11 years old, I don't have to do that anymore because she knows she can read the signs well. She knows where to go, and we can just go on our own. We don't have to wait for. But a lot of times when waiting for sighted assistance, you'll have to wait a little bit while, whatever. But now, in terms of technology, if I was by myself, and this is crazy because this happened recently. There's an app and there's a service out there for the blind and visually impaired called Aira, AIRA.
Okay.
It's not a free promotion. It's not a shameless plug or whatever. But they offer a great service for people who don't have other resources.
Yeah.
That you can, with your phone, or if you subscribe to their service, they have a set of glasses that you put on that makes you look like a space cadet. but
that sounds kind of fun. I want some.
But you can use your phone much like using the back camera. So you put it in a lanyard around your chest like this.
Okay.
And the camera is looking at the angle as to where you're going. So you connect to this person in an airport.
Yeah.
And the person is a professional, and they're giving you, and you have an earbud in your ear or something, and they're telling you where to go based on what they see.
Wow.
So you can go through an entire airport experience without getting any sighted assistance, much like anybody else. So to most people, they'll say, oh, look, he's on the phone, but they don't know that what you're on the phone doing is having someone give you visual assistance.
Sure.
So, and
wow, that's remarkable.
Yeah. One of the things that I liked about that opportunity, and like I said, I thought about using it previously in early October when I was away in Atlanta. To me, there's a lot of things that I miss when I'm with a sighted assistant, and I'll ask them. When I get through security, I said, all right, I want to stop and get something to drink, something to eat, use the restroom. But there's all these different shops as you leave security that you can that most people can just see and say, no, I don't want to go in there. No, I don't want to go in there.
Yeah.
I don't know what's there.
Sure.
So with Aira, I can tell them, tell me what you see on your left. Tell me what you see on your right. Maybe there's a newsstand. Oh, maybe I want to stop and get a king-size Snickers. Maybe I want to stop in Starbucks. Maybe I want to go to Caribou or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever and get a cup of coffee. If the person... And look, I'm all about people coming here from other countries, making a life for themselves, working, being gainfully employed. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Okay? My theory is there's a disconnect. There's a communications disconnect there because they may not have a command of the English language. So when I ask them, what do you see? They don't understand that phrase. They don't get it. They don't.
Oh, is
they
that
don't
right?
capture it. That when I ask them, if I change the way I said it, what do you see on your right and left? After a while, human beings get bored with that.
Really?
They don't want to tell. They don't want to keep on talking like that. They're not meant. But the Iris service, or even the relatively new Apple Beacon service, if that system was in place, I could use my phone to tell me what's around me. Now, there's an app that I have used from time to time. It's called Nearby Explorer Online. It's made by American Printing House for the Blind.
Okay. And
I can travel from here down to wherever I need to go, and it will tell me what street I'm on, what streets am I passing, if I want to have it tell me what different stores or what merchants or what attractions am I passing, it'll tell me that too.
So it's a GPS of some kind. It tracks where you're at.
It's a GPS souped up.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
GPS is just going to tell you where to go from point A to point B.
Right.
Not going to tell you the attractions around you.
But but this essentially it's a location device. It knows where you're at that moment.
Yeah, it's a location app on the phone. So
sure.
Let's wind back to 1974, 1975. None of this was even a concept.
Right.
May have been a thought in the back of somebody's head.
Sure.
Okay? But the reality is, I had to look. I didn't learn how to read print by reading it with my eyes. Okay.
Yes.
I was taught how to write, of course, letters and stuff like that. But believe it or not, the way I learned my ABCs with the letters that you guys look at, is by reading license plates.
Oh.
So when I was 5, 6 years old, getting out of cars, I would feel the cars around our car and feel the license plate to see what the license plate said. Mm-hmm. So I learned the letters that way. And then my mom picked up on that, so she would then get me, which now I think we have at my house, I don't know if it's there or whatever, but is the magnetic letters for teaching your kids the letters.
Yeah.
That's how I learned how to know what printed letters looked like. When I was 5, 6 years old, I learned Braille in 6 months because I had to. There was no other medium.
Right, right. So I want to tell us about beat baseball a little bit, and then we're going to wrap up with. I want you to think about. No, you're good. I want you to. So you live a full life, and you're blind, and that's incredible. You probably live a fuller life than I do, dude. You know, I think that's so great, and I think there's so much that can be learned from your example, and it's not just someone who's blind, right? So I want you to think about this as you talk about beat baseball.
Okay.
I want you to think about what you can contribute to how people can live a full life despite circumstances that are beyond their control and obviously circumstances that are negative, right? Because you've had a lot of negative circumstances, and we're not going to talk about those today, but maybe that's a different day of follow-up here.
Sure.
But talk about beat baseball. Think about the question, how can you help? How can you contribute? How can you let someone know that they can live a full life despite their circumstances? Beat baseball.
Okay. So beat baseball has been around since the early to mid 1970s. Started here in Minnesota officially.
Okay.
Prior to that, there was versions in the San Francisco area and in other parts of the country, but it was never organized.
Okay.
So in the late 1975, in September 1975, the first Beat Baseball World Series was held in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Wow.
We're going to stop there, and I'm going to give you background. So Beat Baseball is, and I forgot, I should have brought up ball with me, but Beat Baseball is a modified version of the game of softball/baseball.
Okay.
Where Beat Baseball is played with a ball that beeps and bases that buzz.
I see. Okay.
So as opposed to 9 people or 10 people on the field for softball, baseball.
Yeah.
There's 6 defenders on the field and there's a batter at the plate. And every one of those 7 are blindfolded. So each team brings their own pitcher and catcher to the game.
Okay.
So the pitcher pitches in the area of where the batter is swinging to maximize the potential of hitting that ball.
Uh-huh.
So with the ball that's beeping, everyone says, "Oh, you listen to the beep." No, it's all, for pitching and batting purposes. It's all about timing.
Sure.
The pitcher's trying to put the ball in the area where the bat is, and the batter's trying to keep a consistent, regular swing.
Okay.
When the bat hits the ball, it has to travel 40 feet. 1, to be fair, and 2, if it is fair, then it becomes a race between the batter and the fielders to 1. If the fielder is going to pick up the ball before the batter gets to the base, or 2, the batter gets to the base before the fielders pick up the ball. Now,
so just simply pick up the ball.
you pick up the ball and show that you have clean position out in front of you like this.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm holding my hands out in front of me.
Yeah, good.
Keep doing that. Yeah. In case other blind people were listening, like, well, what's he doing?
Yes, describe it. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Anyway.
Yes.
Like,
dude, I can see what you're doing. I mean, come on. No, I got you. Sorry.
It's funny. All the different podcasts and stuff like that, I tend to tease things. I'll say, when you're looking to monetize your podcast, you're like, insert sponsor here. And when I was holding my hands out in front of me, like, insert audio description here.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the difference another difference between beat baseball and softball/baseball is that there's no second base.
Okay.
The bases are between 48 and 52 inches high.
Okay.
They're foam cylinders.
Yeah.
And they almost look like tackling dummies. So
Sure.
the batter at the point of contact doesn't know what base is going to get turned on, whether it be first or third. The bases are only down down only the first and third base line, and they're 10 feet in foul territory. We'll get into that in a second. So the batter hits the ball. They don't know what base is going to get turned on. The base gets turned on. Now they have to get to that base before the fielders pick up the ball. That can be anywhere between 4 and 6 seconds. Okay? The bases are 100 feet down the baseline. They're 10 feet in foul territory because even though it does happen, you don't want the batter running in the field of play because it's considered interference. You want the batter to try to zone in that bass sound, that buzzing sound.
Okay.
And as I explain it to new players all the time, take that buzzing sound and center it like a laser in the middle of your chest.
Okay.
And then you will run straight to that base. So if the batter gets to the base before the ball gets fielded, it's a run.
Yeah.
And if the fielders pick up the ball before the batter gets to the base, it's an out. 3 outs in an inning, 6 innings in a game. The team with the most runs, because each time a batter gets to the base before the fielders pick up the ball, it's a run. So the most runs, of course, of a team wins over the other team. Very, very competitive game to the point where it is the most insane thing to watch. You can watch on YouTube Beat Baseball. There is thousands of videos.
I'm going to do that today.
Okay. Some
yeah.
videos have
Sounds
my voice
fun.
on it sometime, whatever.
Okay.
But I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for people, one, to individually become a part of a team and to learn how to become part of a team and be a team.
Yeah.
It's synergy at its best.
Wow.
And everyone's blindfolded. So when you're on defense, when the ball gets hit, so I mentioned that before, that the pitcher and catcher are on the batting team.
Yeah.
Not like baseball, softball, where they're on the opposing team.
Yes.
So in the field, of course, you have the 6 defenders, but then you could have either 1 or 2 sighted individuals known as field spotters.
Okay.
So what they do is when the ball is hit, they announce a numerical zone. So that field is set up into 6 zones.
Okay.
Okay. Some teams will operate where the number 1 will be down the baselines, or one will be up the middle, and then so 1 on the baseline, then it would fan into number 6 in the middle. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Or same thing, 1 in the middle, and then fan out to 5, and then 6 would be a deep center field.
Okay.
In beat baseball, if someone hits a ball that is 170 feet on the fly fair and lands 170 feet and beyond, it's a home run.
Wow.
It's a 2-run home run. That's provided the person can get to the base within 30 seconds.
Okay.
There are teams all over the United States. As far north as Minnesota, of course, and we'll talk about that in a second. As far south as San Antonio, Texas. As far west as Pasadena, California. As far east as Boston, Massachusetts, or Fort Lauderdale, Florida. There are teams from Taiwan. There are teams from Canada. There are teams from Dominican Republic. There are teams now from Argentina. Me personally, I started playing beat baseball in a recreational perspective in 1995, and I said, "All right, I've learned how to play the game now. I want to make my own team and make it a competitive team," because at that point it was only recreational.
Okay.
We played against charity against sighted people, which really is not so much the same. I mean, you can modify the game, but when you're playing against another blind team, there's much more competition. So I created with several friends out of New York, Ted Fast, Jim Hughes, Don Carreras. We created the Long Island Bombers back in 1997, and we attended our first World Series in 2002.
Wow.
I moved to Rochester in 2008. I joined the Minnesota Fighting Lions, which was originally a recreational team, and we began in the fall of 2009, about a month and a half before my daughter Kaylee was born, the Minnesota Millers. And we've been going to every World Series ever since. So what's great about the whole World Series thing is each year since 1975, we've been in a different city around the United States, and we've been to Taiwan once for the Beat Baseball World Series. It's a week-long competition between teams. Winner takes all. So now, because we've changed things a little bit, we start playing games on Tuesday and we play all the way through to Saturday. And truth be told, as a marathon runner, I'm not, but as a marathon runner.
Thanks for the clarification.
As a marathon runner, you can train and you can prepare for the marathon all you want. As a basketball player, you play basketball and you practice all the different things you can. Yeah. Football, everything like that. Beat baseball, the only true way to train for beat baseball is to play it.
Yeah.
And here in the northern tundra, there's not always the case to play as much as we would like. We're lucky if we can get out in April.
Sure.
However, the team, the Minnesota Millers, and same thing for the Long Island Bombers, we grew as a team together. Yeah. We were homegrown teams. We rarely took people from outside of our jurisdiction or outside of our area where we were to play with us because we wanted to be us. Same thing with Minnesota. The organization allows us to go out and have people from neighboring states such as South and North Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa, etc. People from Iowa may not like this, but my brother.
Poor people from Iowa.
No. What I'm about to say. My brother Frank moved to Iowa back in 1992.
Yeah.
Probably right around this time of the year. And when I moved to Minnesota, I grew to like the phrase that the greatest thing coming out of Iowa is an empty bus.
Oh boy!
but there's always something funny to come out of it.
For sure.
Anyway, so creating the team with my dear friend Doug Van Dyne and his son, we grew the team at the very beginning with 4 or 5 people, and then we started growing little by little. And we started modifying things. One of my dearest friends, my best friends, Dan Eliason, is Maddie and Taylor, my stepdaughter's dad, and he pitches for us. He's an amazing pitcher. When we first started, we had another dear friend who's my driver for work right now, Brett. They were just precision people. And when you're looking for someone to be a pitcher for a beat baseball team, you're looking for someone to be precise and accurate with what they're doing. They want to put that ball on the bat.
Yeah.
And every beat ball pitcher that has withstood the test of time over the years, that's all that's all they're concerned about. They don't want to do anything else. A lot of them will try to coach. A lot of them will try to do other things. But most of the time, all they want to focus on is just pitching.
Yeah. And
they'll do all that. Beat baseball as a whole is the National Beat Baseball Association is a 501c3 and has been since we first started, going back to the days of the creators of Jim Mastro, Jim Quinn, John Ross, Denny Uberty. They all had a thought in their mind that we want to bring the sport of softball/baseball to being competitive for those who can't see. And when speaking to unfortunately, most of them are gone, but some of those who are still around, they have never even considered how large this organization has gone. I've been the secretary for the National League since 2006, and we have seen our membership grow from 270 up to 540.
Wow.
So it's doubled, and it's only getting bigger and better because, look, the population for those who are visually impaired or who are totally blind in this country is at about 2 or 3 million.
Okay.
And not all of them play beat baseball. We want them to play all to play beat baseball. We want more opportunities. We want opportunities we want us to be recognized by Major League Baseball or to philanthropic organizations that will recognize our sport as being a legitimate sport.
Yeah.
It is in its own way, in its own right. We've built our own credibility.
Yeah.
We go to cities every year for our World Series of beat baseball, and we attract many spectators, and we make it where it's possible that there's no cost to come and see the game. It's all for free. The players and the teams fundraise all year round to get prepared to go to the World Series every year, and having the opportunity where we can facilitate a week-long helicopter.
No, that would actually,
that's a truck.
that would be a very large truck going down the hill outside my house
I
here.
guess there's a window back there.
There is, yes, yes.
You guys, I sounded like a helicopter. It sounded
It
like,
did.
like Mail 1 at first.
Yeah, so there's the hill out here. They use their Jake brake or whatever they call that. Yeah. So it's that's what it was.
So going back to what I was saying, so the national organization strives to provide and facilitate.
Anybody listening, I'm not sure if that's really going to come through the mic or not, but
it was like,
it was right, exactly.
Sounded like Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Anyway, the national organization and the teams and the players of the sport and the volunteers, the appreciated volunteers that we have, everyone wants to just play the sport. There are so many different rules and such, and from an administrative perspective, as a secretary, I see all the different things that go on, whether they be bylaw problems or rule problems or whatever. And there's always problems with any large organization.
Yeah.
But the benefit is that people just want to get out and play ball.
Yeah.
And seeing someone dive on the ground, because the way a defender will stop a ball is they'll dive from left to right or however which way, and they'll try to get that ball in their hands and show that ball to the umpire away from their body. Mm-hmm. My hands are out in front of my simulating like I have the ball in my hand.
Yeah.
And they want to show that they have the out. And yes, in beat baseball, like in baseball, softball, you have your bang bang plays.
Right. Wow.
It's a very competitive game, and everyone on the field is tooth and nail. Let's beat them.
Yeah.
Off the field, it's the largest family I could ever imagine of having. Mm-hmm. There's never a time that there's never someone who doesn't want to have a chat. And yes, the most infamous thing to talk about is beat baseball, or did you hear about this game? Did you hear about that game? Did you hear about that person hitting a home run? So it's just like one big happy family that we have, family reunion that we have for a week. And everyone comes in, everyone says hi, and then at the end of the week we have our awards banquet, and it's the last time for all of us to be together all again until next year.
Yeah.
So, of course, shameless plug, people can go check out on YouTube Beat Baseball, go to www.nbba.org, and from there you can go check out the Minnesota Millers or any other team that's, if you listen to this in whatever part of the country or world, there's always Beat Baseball that's going to be found near you. To me...
No, plug away. It's not shameless at all. I love what you're doing.
To go back to your question, I think that the thing with triumph over tragedy. Yeah. First day with a new tongue. Sorry.
Yeah. No problem. I get that way most days, and I've had mine for my entire life.
Yeah, exactly. No transplants. The thing about triumph over tragedy for me is, it's a very cynical statement, but to me is, I'm not going to slow down till I go down, whenever that day is.
Yeah.
We all have. I've often heard about and seen stuff on social media and such that,
And there you go back to, you say seen.
Yeah. I've read on social media.
That's great.
Anyway, I've seen on social media that, and it's a true statement to some degree. There's a plan by our Almighty that He has laid out for us already. And it's with the choices that we make, whether it be good or bad, that we fulfill that plan. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we go a different direction than what He originally planned for, but there's always a reason to me that in the choices that I make, and as a professional technology instructor, I look as to what's the best thing for my clients. I try to keep within the standards set by the state of Minnesota as to what I need, what I can and can't do. But ultimately, the only thing I'm really ever concerned about is what's right for my client. So if I go to a training session and someone says, I have to learn this, it may derail anything I have in my head that I wanted to accomplish that day for the client, but that's what they need to do. Mm-hmm. And I am not a person to say, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Why not? I'll say what my mom said years ago. Why not? Why not let him ride a bike? Why not let him try roller skates? Why not let him go down the big slide? Why not let him play? Look, I grew up playing all the different sports. I learned how to hit. I grew up learning baseball, and why I have such the field of a beat baseball field, is only played on a grass field.
Okay.
Envisioning the layout of that field as to where the players stand, I have in my head. I know how our team sets up. I can figure out how other teams set up. Fantastic. Not everyone has that capability. I learned how to play baseball. I learned the rules of baseball by listening to the New York Yankees as a kid, listening painfully as a Minnesota Twins fan, as in my older years. But I learned primarily by taking Legos and building a baseball stadium as I saw it. Okay. If you look at the Rorschach tests that psychologists give, if you look at, if you put on a blindfold, Matt, and someone asks you, draw a house as you see it, it would be completely different the way I see it.
Right.
I see it as a square with a triangle roof. No windows, no doors. Everyone else would draw in doors and windows and gables and chimney, and not me. I see it as I see a person that I'm meeting for the first time. I look at them as this is how I imagine them. In my mind's eye. This is how I imagine it. So with other people, and going back to your question,
so you don't realize that I'm wearing a clown suit today?
No.
You know that's not true, obviously. But
Jimmy Crack Corn. That's why I love it. My theory about how people can deal with their stresses, and I was watching something again on TikTok last night, and someone said, have you ever watched the show The Ranch?
I've heard of it. I have not. No.
So Sam Elliott is the father in this ranch, and he's at a doctor's appointment. And in this one episode, I remember the episode, she says, well, let's talk about your diet. She goes, I think you should cut out eating red meat. He goes, no chance. He says, I think you should cut down on alcohol consumption. No chance. She says, what do you do to relieve stress? He goes, eat steak and drink whiskey. You know, so you know,
sure.
My theory about how people can deal with their stresses, and you don't know what someone is feeling until you walk a mile in his shoes. There's so much truth to that statement.
Yeah.
There's so much truth to know that, look, this week may be bad. You may have a lot of letdowns during this week. Tomorrow's a brighter day. If you wake up every morning and say, thank God I'm alive, and you can smile, whether it's sunny outside or not, or that you can encounter a child or a dog or a cat or a pet of your choice, and they make you smile. If you find something to make you smile in the morning, then your day might turn out a little bit better. In my theory, I'll get up and I have a routine. I'll get up in the morning and I'll make my coffee, and whether it be by a coffee maker or a Keurig or whatever I'm choosing that very moment, make breakfast, and then I'll get started with my work. But as a normal human being, you know, as an adult, the only difference between me and anyone else is that I just can't see you. And maybe there's a blessing in that.
Thanks, Steve.
No,
right?
That's not directed towards you.
I have a voice for radio, right? What's that saying? I have a face for radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Is that how it goes? Something like that. Yeah.
But my theory is to look at the challenges you're experiencing, and not everything is grim. Find something to make you laugh, whatever it is. You know, it could be a bad joke, could be a dirty joke. To me, I love to make people laugh, and I love to make people feel at ease. And the greatest compliment to me is when someone says, you know, I keep on forgetting you can't see. Because there's no reason for you to even think about it. I'm just like you. The only difference is I can't drive. I can't see. And that's exactly when someone asks, well, what do you think about your dad being blind? He says, well, the only thing he can't do is drive. Well, lo and behold, in the not too distant future, we're going to have driverless cars.
Yeah. Do you follow that?
You know, I follow it to a degree where this is what I'm concerned about, okay? As a pedestrian, as an individual who walks a lot, I'm concerned about, of course, the environmentalists are concerned about zero emissions. They're worried about pollution in the air. That's all fine and good, but I think the insert of electric vehicles into the landscape is scary for me because you can't really hear them until they're up on top of you. When I was playing beat baseball a couple years ago with a teammate of mine, Riley, we were playing in a tournament in Bolingbrook, Illinois, and it was a very windy day, and no one could hear the ball. So our coach Doug put me up in front left and Riley up in front right, and we really did not. We did the best we possibly can. We did well, but we couldn't make plays on the ball until the ball was right there at us. You had to have a split second move to grab that ball or to dive your body in front of that ball to stop it, and we did. But wind to someone who can't see is deafening. So if it's windy out and I go out for a walk and I try to go out for a walk as much as I can. If it's windy, then where I'm going, I'm fine. But there are times that if I have to cross a street and it's windy, it's almost like I can't do it. When I was 8 years old, I went walking out with a cane and it was windy, and I said to my instructor, my mobility instructor, I said, "This is impossible to do." I said, "I can't cross the street because I can't hear." You know, he said, "Well, let's just try to make the best of it." Okay, so he taught me. He says, when the wind is not gusting, if you're able to cross. So I'm like, okay. So I did. No big deal. Same thing. If you find the ways to make your life harder, it's going to be harder. If you find the ways to make your life easier, look. Let's go back to when I was 5-6 years old. My parents got us those pedal vehicles for kids that you pedaled, and the more you pedaled, the faster you went. Not me. I would pedal, coast. Pedal, coast. My brother, pedal, 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 pedal. And my mother saw this. So, I mean, look, am I always going to find an easy way out? I want to try. But I'm also the type of person that I know what I have to work for. I know what I have to do. I know what I look at thank goodness for the iPhone calendar, because I can schedule myself on a daily basis. I know what I have to do when I get back to my home. I know I'm going to go and vote. I don't think there's anything to vote for, but that's me. That's my personal political opinion. But I'm going to go register to vote, because not voting means you don't have an opinion. Registering to vote is a privilege. But that's my belief. That's my understanding, and that's what I think everyone fails to. You look at kids who are 18, 19 years old, and they say, well, what is my vote going to count? Every vote counts. But that's my opinion, and that's what I've always professed to kids also. But if you look for the things in your life that make you happy, if you eat the foods that make you happy, if you and I'm quite happy, as anyone could tell. Years ago, a friend of mine used to say, bought and paid for, no second mortgage.
Right.
But if you find the things that make you happy, if you do the things that make you happy, then you'll have a secretion of endorphins and of chemicals in your brain that you will find the good of things. There are so many negative things. I'm 50 years old. I've been blind for 45 years. Is it a blessing? Was it part of my plan to go blind at 5 years old? No. But I think, going back to my previous statement,
you have obviously made the best of it, though. I just want to say that.
I try.
And that's the point of try is the point, right? But you've made the best of it because you tried.
Yeah. It wasn't my plan. But my theory is, look, I have a couple things going for me. The guy who did this to me is dead. That's one. Two, I'm gainfully employed. I have a beautiful daughter. I'm happy. I have money in the bank. I have food in the house. I have clothes on my back. I can go and make other people's lives happier. If you can do something to make someone else's life easier or happier, then that's a plus. You know, as small as where I did something for another individual who's also totally blind that, you know, they're, again, going off tangent. I have cordless phones that are made by Panasonic. This is not a plug for them. I don't like the company anyway. But
oh boy.
So, anyway, so I have cordless phones that are made by Panasonic.
We'll just go bleep at that point, right?
No, that doesn't bother me. They can go to hell.
Yeah.
So I have cordless phones that announce the caller ID for me, which is a plus. What's funny is I have it turned on my TV too. So the phone will ring and I'll be listening for the call ID, and if my daughter's there, she goes, so-and-so is calling. I'm like, okay, note to self, turn that feature off.
Yeah.
You know, for the TV. But so if you can I made someone else happy because their phones were always dying. They didn't have the talking caller ID feature. They couldn't see. So I got them the phone that I had because I know it worked for me. Mm-hmm. Unbeknownst to them. But like I said, if you can go and find something to make you happy and make someone else happy, at some point, you're finding worth in your life on a daily basis. And you're finding worth in doing the small little things. If you start finding the small little things, those little things will start getting bigger. Yeah. And then little by little, look, there are days that I wish I could see, but that lasts about 30 seconds. Maybe not even that. There's nothing I can do about it. It's out of my control.
Yeah.
Don't dwell on what you can't control. If you have a prosthetic leg, you're never going to get that leg back unless science does something miraculously. I'm never going to get my sight back. I'm not going to dwell on that because that's not me. My personality is laughter, happiness, and doing things for others. You know, I'm gainfully employed now as a technology instructor for the state of Minnesota, and I should have gone into business 10 years ago for myself. I've always been loyal to companies that I always worked for before, but they were never loyal to me. Mm-hmm. So, okay, but I was a glutton for punishment. But now I'm doing what I like to do, and I can see the reward in teaching people every day, where I walk out of someone's house and I accomplished this today.
Yeah.
I did this for this person. I have a client that lives out near Owatonna, and he's been looking for a Bluetooth keyboard that's a full size that has a numeric keypad on the right hand side. We haven't been able to find one. I found one and I got it. And I called him last night and told him, hey, I have this keyboard. He's I can't wait to use it because the other one he has does not have a numeric keypad on the right hand side. It's a smaller Bluetooth keyboard, but the keys are smaller and he has bigger fingers. Okay. So this larger keyboard has bigger keys so he can get to them easily. Yeah. Aside from all that, so I always look as to what's right for my clients. What can I do right for my client to make their lives easier? What am I going to do to empower them? Yeah. With other people who have, and other guests that you have had on, they've all done that too. They've all taken the tragedy that they had and they've dealt with it. They've put it where they can make it comfortable. Look, losing a loved one, losing a limb, or losing a sense that you can't get back at some point, you can sit home all day and collect from the government your monthly stipend from Social Security, and that can be your life for the rest of your life. And you can dwell on, I wish I could see, this really sucks. There's so much stuff out there for me now that was not there in 1974 that enables me to be that much closer to being a sighted person. Will science ever restore my sight? No. Is there people out there who might have the opportunity to sing again and have the science that they can learn to see again? Yes. I applaud them. Congratulations. I see my daughter's face, and I held my daughter when she was 10 minutes old. And I have that vision in my head, and I've seen her grow. Mm-hmm. And I know what is in my mind's eye and how beautiful and how lovely she is. And that's exactly how I see her. And there's no one in this world that's ever going to steal that from me. For me, seeing beauty in the way I see it, and having people see beauty in how they see it. And there are people that I've come in contact with that will say, well, I really want you to see this pretty rose. I have an idea what a rose looks like. I look at it in a different way, like the Rorschach test. I draw a house different from what you might draw. It doesn't mean that you're wrong and I'm right, or vice versa. It means that you take the resources that are in front of you and you use them to the max. So when I go to this church today, I'm not going to say what church because I don't want them to get a bad rap. When I go to this church today, when I go in the door, I know there's a stairs that goes down to where you need to go vote. Now, I'll take that extra precaution with my mobility skills, and I'll go in that door a little slower so I don't fall down those stairs. Because who wants to fall down the stairs? It's embarrassing. And, of course, you could potentially get hurt. Another truck.
Another truck.
But that's me, and I want most people to understand that it really does not pay to dwell on the past, the past. There's always good things are from the past, but remember the good memories. When you lose a loved one, remember the good memories. Or put aside all the negative arguments that you may have had with that person. Put aside all the negatives. If you put all the negatives in your virtual shoebox and keep the lid on them, only you will know about. No one will have access to that shoebox. And if you put that shoebox on a shelf that only you know where it is, hypothetically in your mind, then only you can access that. If you put all the good things, like I'll say this, when I got the text message from you this morning that you were on your way, I always get myself ready to go. I don't believe on making others wait for me. But that's my obsessive compulsive behavior. And that's me. But I knew I was ready to go about a half hour before you even gave me a text, because that's what I wanted to do. So if you set yourself a schedule, if you set yourself...
How late was I?
You weren't late at all. You got there at 8:29.
Nice job.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, and you texted me, you said, I'll be there in 10 minutes, and you got there in 9 minutes, so you're good.
Yeah.
But, I mean, look, it's a plus to have the opportunity to share with people about this tragedy. There's so much tragedy in this world. And one of the things I wanted to say before is, being blind 45 years, there's ugliness in this world that I don't want to see. I don't know if my mind, I don't know if my brain could digest or absorb the ugliness that takes place in this world. And, it's our own doing. There's so much deception, and there's so much differences in this world, whether it be by the two main political parties in the United States, or between countries, or between people, whatever. Look, let's diffuse everything. Let's dial it back. Let's try to find how we can resolve things before we can move forward. You always want to move forward, but it's important to, I try to look at people. Look, I may not get along with driver A or person B, but they're their own person, and I don't want to walk in his shoes at some point, because I know they may have their own differences, but I just at the moment can't deal with that. So I try to deal with it where I said, all right, I'll do this, and I'll finish my business with that person, and if I can avoid them in the future, I will. But that's my choice. There are people who will try to do things and be angry and shout. And I grew up in a shouting family. And some people call that dysfunctional. Some people say that that's not healthy. And some people say it is. Right now, I think probably the best way to handle things for me is try to take a step back each time and be patient and see how maybe there's a resolution for a problem. If there's not, find a temporary solution. Maybe the temporary solution might yield a permanent solution. But try to remain as positive as possible. Try to find those things that make you laugh. And if someone who you may have not gotten along with says to you, well, what are you laughing about? What's so funny? And you tell them, maybe they might find it funny. So then guess what? Now you have common ground.
Yeah.
Now
It's
you
good.
now you have a resolution
It's good.
at some point that you can build upon. Maybe that relationship that has always been difficult might become a little easier to deal with.
Yeah.
You know. And
Last paragraph.
Go
What's
ahead.
your last paragraph? It's yours.
a yawn.
Yeah. That's one sentence in the paragraph.
Yeah,
huh?
right. Be true to yourself. If you are not, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Know down deep inside the person you are and the way you want to be, and make those around you be thankful and appreciate the type of person you are in the friendship that you have with them, and make them, and by all means make them laugh.
Yeah.
And make the other people laugh. And you know, we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and there are so many things to be thankful for.
Yeah.
The thing I think probably I'm thankful for the most is my daughter. And you know, yes, I've lived a full life, but she allows me to lead even a more fuller life, because we're always on the run. And I learn from her every day. And if you can find that, if you can learn from someone that you're close to every day, then you're always going to be a student to your future.
Yeah. Steve, I appreciate your attitude. I appreciate your humor. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate how you have just really taken triumph in your life, and you've spread that triumph to others by helping in immense ways.
Tell me how you really feel.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Matt, for
You
having
bet.
me. I appreciate it. I enjoyed this. This is great.
Yes.